Welcome to the third day of Kwanzaa, Ujima, which means the collective work and responsibility of all of us to build and maintain our community together and to make our sisters and brothers' problems our problems and to solve them together. This is an important principle of Kwanzaa because I think sometimes we get into a zone when it comes to our community's problems or community issues. And some people are like, who's actually doing the work? Who's doing the change? And they may not know a name or a face. They may know certain organizations, but they may not know the people behind it. And they may not know what's actually going on. So, I wanted to invite you two groups, Black Lives Matter Louisville with Chanelle Helm, who's my sorority sister, so Zifa, and also Black Out and Proud, the board, decided to grace us with their presence as well, all the way from Columbus, Ohio. And they're new and, doing big things, doing great things. I wanted to make sure that people knew what is going on in our communities. So I'm going to start with Black Out and Proud board. And I have some questions, just so people will really know what you all are doing and how you all are embodying what Ujima is, especially when it comes to Kwanzaa and this principle that we're celebrating. So for Black Out and Proud, the board, I would like you all to introduce yourselves first of all.
I'm Ebony Partlow.
Avery Frost. And Letha Pugh.
Okay. Any background you want to share to us about maybe some of the work that you do or some of the background of this work?
So Black Out and Proud, or BOP as we like to call ourselves, was founded in 2017. We came together for a variety of reasons, but for me and for a lot of us, the paramount reason is to come together to celebrate and empower Black LGBT individuals here in Central Ohio and abroad. And so that takes a lot of forms, but since we come together, this collective has done some volunteer work. We've come together to do fundraising for other nonprofits that are doing really important work in our community, whether it's just for us as the LGBT community or as the Black community as a whole. We try to come together to give back as we can and to be positive role models for our community.
All right.
And I think it's important just to, like you said today in particular, this principle, because part of our mission is to help educate and promote the empowerment of Black people in this community, also provide like different social opportunities, the arts and spirituality, and holding space unapologetically for Black people. And so I think that's really important as we come together to discuss this topic today.
Awesome.
And actually, Lisa is one of our founders, so she can kind of give you a little bit more information about it as well.
And just to add on to Ebony and Avery, I think the important part for me is that as a community, as a part of the LGBT community, we have something to contribute. And so as opposed to just kind of complaining about what's not happening, I'm a doer. And so let's get out here, let's do some work. Let's make some space for ourselves, and also for me, it's for a lot of times it's for the youth. If they don't see positive images of themselves, how are they going to kind of move forward in life and become contributing members of this community, and understanding that if we don't contribute, we will get left behind. So
Right.
I think a lot of the energy behind BOP is just making sure that our voices are heard.
Exactly. Thank you. So what are maybe some of the major programming that you all are, maybe coming up with to tackle some of these big issues that you mentioned? Also to, put Black LGBT on the map, to be more transparent with our identities out there in the community, because you know how people sometimes silo Black folks into only being Black, like you're Black and this is your salient issue, period. just
Right.
being Black. But, you know, being Black and queer, or Black, queer, and Crip, or other identities of yourself, these are still very, yeah, you know, they're not Crip, but being, you know, not able-bodied. But, you know, those identities are still very salient for people and often overlooked, because we often see just being Black as being hetero, being cisgender, and that is it. So what are some of the programming that you all have in store to kind of tackle some of these issues and kind of put us on the map a little bit?
Right.
I think that we've kind of spent the first year trying to figure out what we want this to look like. How can we work with other organizations? You know, trying to do more about getting the word out that we even exist. I think in 2019, we'll put a lot more energy into specific programming. We have a strategic planning weekend coming up soon. And so I think we'll kind of nail down some of the things that we want to accomplish for 2019 and, you know, beyond 2019. It's a wide open field. And I think we can't take on everything, because this is not the only thing we do. We're like small business owners, and you know, there's a variety of people who are involved with BOP. So I think, you know, the self-care aspect of it is really important. But I think what you can look to kind of see from us is that increased involvement in working with youth, and even working within the cisgender Black community.
Yeah. So part of the things that we want to do as far as programming is providing, initially just holding space and providing a safe space for Black people who identify as LGBTQ, right? And so we've decided for Pride coming up, we're definitely going to host an art event where we can showcase, part of what we want to showcase our artists, showcase Black queer artists, and give them the opportunity to really have, to showcase their skills. So it's also multifaceted in that we're building relationships, like Letha said, within the Black community. We really want to work with Black establishments, particularly the churches and other Black entities who are working with us, but not necessarily, like you said, identifying or either understanding that the intersections of our identities, right? You might service us as Black people, but you're not servicing us as Black LGBTQ people. And we want to make sure that they understand first the need for them to do that, and also how they might go about building relationships within the community, so we can be partners and allies in that. Additionally, like Avery and both Letha said, we also want to build, so we're building community so that we can come together at least once a month and volunteer and give back. So it's multifaceted. It's education, it's social advancement, it's highlighting and empowering, it's holding space. And sometimes holding space just means that we're providing an opportunity for people to come together, gather, kind of talk about how their week has been, and just fellowship, and really feel like they can talk to their peers. And so we want to be able to provide that space for people.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool and also important that we're trying to be and show really positive role models, right? And so, like we've already mentioned, like we all hold a variety of different positions. So whether it be as business owners, as program directors, executive directors, elected officials, what have you, you have Black LGBT folks in a lot of positions of power, and we're just normalizing what's already normal for us, right? Like this is just our life. And if us being out there volunteering and being present is helpful and inspiring to other youth and other folks that are in varying degrees of openness, whatever, like that's, but that's what we're here for as well. So like, we're here to serve, we're here to be an example, we're here to protect, we're here to be advocates, we're here, you know, to chill.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I guess one of my last questions for you. You know, within our community for Black LGBT Q+ communities, we're not talking about developing healthy relationships enough. How to develop healthy relationships, not just within romantic relationships, but also within friendships, molding authentic and holistically transformative relationships. So what ways will you kind of intertwine that within some of your work, that authenticity aspect?
Yeah, I think that's an important point because we're talking about, working together collectively and taking on our brothers and sisters' issues as our own and really problem solving. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the fact that BOP was created after the Black Pride 4 were arrested here in Columbus during Pride of 2016. And so as a result of that, people came together and really kind of put their heads together and say, what can we do? And as a collective, BOP came together, and we represent over 100 some people here in the Columbus community. Sorry.
That's okay.
But one of the things I think we want to do as far as building relationships within our community is really building relationships with our queer and non-gender binary people of color, our peers in this community. We recognize that there is some division. We recognize that we could do more as cisgender people to really advocate for their needs. We understand that they are the most marginalized within our community. We understand that their issues are important, that they're being targeted with violence, and we want to be able to build relationships with them so that when we sit at tables that perhaps they might not be able to sit at, we can bring their issues. It's not just about that cliche kind of being inclusive when we're having conversations, but really taking the opportunity to learn their issues, because I say all the time, especially working with youth in my day job, I learn something new every single day. I learn a new, it's so multifaceted in this community. It's not, when I came out, it was just, I was Black and I was learning how to deal with the intersection of being a lesbian. Now there's so many other things that we need to be aware of so that we can effectively advocate and be activists within this community. So when you talk about building relationships, that's, I think, in 2019 where we need to start within our community, within the LGBT community, and then building relationships within the Black community to help serve them as well.
Awesome. That's a great response. Thank you. My last ultimate question is, I always, when I speak to students and groups of people, I always end my conversation with them with a call to action. How can we serve each other or be able to support each other a bit more when it comes to our initiatives? So how can we help you and help you all do the work that you're doing? And what do you all need from us when it comes to a call to action?
I want to take that one.
All right, so I need some more. But I would say the best way to be supportive is to be an ally. So whether you're a direct member of our community, or you're just a supporter, like straight up, like whether it doesn't matter, like whether you're heterosexual, homosexual, what have you, we all can be together in this fight for equality and for equal representation. Thank you very much. And so I think that allyship can take a variety of forms.
Yeah.
Whether it's straight up on the lines with us, or just like volunteering at events, showing up, standing out, speaking out. Like if you see discrimination, say something about it. We don't have to always be the ones that are the only ones speaking about equal representation. And so for me, that's a very big
Awesome. All right. Do you all have any last words or any events that you would like to hub while you have this floor?
Check us, go to our website, blackoutandproud.com. Follow us, make sure that you follow our page and like us. We will be publishing and always presenting our information through those platforms. But beyond that, I don't know if we have anything specific.
Other than thank you for including us, and I think the acknowledgement is nice. It's like sometimes you have your head down, you're working, and you don't realize that people are aware that you're even out here. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely, we definitely appreciate that.
Well, you know, it was important for me and other people that I've talked to about this to acknowledge that we see you. We see what you're doing, and we are so proud of the work that you're beginning to do. You're going to not only be transformative for youth and for LGBT and, you know, Columbus, but this is big. This is big for, you know, nationally, what you're doing to center Black bodies in this dialogue, because we know that, you know, when it comes to LGBTQ plus work, Black bodies aren't always centered. That we have to make that space to center it. So you all have really paved the way for the future of advocacy for Black LGBT. So we appreciate that.
And
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for
much.
that. And what I would love to say, I think about Kwanzaa, collective responsibility, is that I think that we all look forward to a day where we can say Black out and proud, and we talk about the entirety of our community.
Yeah.
It's not about sexuality. It's like, we're Black, we're proud, we're all here together.
Yeah.
And it's about time that we come together and move us all together forward. It doesn't matter what it's about. It's we got bigger problems to talk about than our sexuality.
Right.
That is true.
Thank you very much for including us. We appreciate you, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
That was great, you all. And so many things to consider, so many things, you know, that were mentioned that we all can be invested in when it comes to helping out with our community and being collective within our mission. So I appreciate that. The next person to speak is Chanelle Helm. She is, let me tell you, she has been on the front line of social justice and diversity since I have known her. She is doing some amazing things with Black Lives Matter Louisville. I have been keeping track of her diligently, especially in the news and many other outlets, and just doing some amazing things within Black Lives Matter. So thank you for occupying the space, Chanelle.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you, Jay, for putting this together. This is cute. I like this, especially the way it's flowing through Kwanzaa. And just might need to just be its own little space and stuff. How often do you do this?
You know, I have been celebrating Kwanzaa since undergrad, since 2000 and what is it, 2007. But I feel like, you know, oftentimes Kwanzaa celebrations aren't necessarily accessible for people, especially for single moms or people that are working and they work late and they don't have the chance to actually go out and participate in Kwanzaa celebrations at their community centers. Or they live in an area like where I'm at right now, at my mom's. We're in Richmond, Kentucky, Madison County, and they're not going to acknowledge Kwanzaa. There's nothing here to even celebrate Kwanzaa. So to create a space to say, hey, you know, this is something that's important to our community, and these are the people that are actually helping to do big things within our community, within, you know, the sphere of helping out Black folks. That's important. So, and I immediately thought of you. Because this is up your alley, one, and you have actualized. There's a difference between talking the talk and actually actualizing your purpose, and you're
Right.
actualizing that through Black Lives Matter Louisville. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background, especially within social justice and advocacy?
I guess I've been doing advocacy pretty much all my life. My grandmother was a social worker, so I did a lot of work with her in doing stuff around those that were intellectually deficient and some other things. And my child is here, and I think this is mine. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
It just looked like a different color, and so I had to make sure and check. Because, anyway, so since then, I knew that like I wanted to either be in like education or at least social work. And I did a lot of tutoring and a lot of like helping folks, and of course started working. And as soon as I was able to get to college, I was able to do education, but did a lot of education advocacy. And like long story short, was a victim of police terrorism. I think a lot of people keep calling it brutality, but like we have to be able to start changing that because it's not just brutality. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can think of brutality as something that happens every so often. What we are seeing is a historic legacy of the police terrorizing Black and brown communities and neighborhoods and stuff. So that happened in 2002, in which the officer later was found indicted for killing a man whose hands were tied behind his back, James Taylor. But of course, he was able to get off, and now he's a lieutenant up in LMPD, and also oversees our protests at special events here in the city. So I have to face him every time that I have a protest or whatever. That definitely goes out to people who are always asking, like, where are we at? That's tiring. It's intrusive. But since then, we, of course, organized underneath a poverty group called Women in Transition. They were a bunch of mothers who were in college and fed up with Bill Clinton and his welfare laws. I think people like see the president as this entity and their party, but they forget that they also implement some things that have been like hurting people.
Mm-hmm.
And so since then, we in 2014 were supporting an organization and a group of boys who were also hemmed up by the police. None of them died underneath the police, although one did lose his life later. And then came up Mike Brown. And so with that, a few of us went out there and just started making sure we could movement organize in the city. It's been really difficult. And we
Mm-hmm.
became Black Lives Matter 2 years later. But underneath that organizing, we noticed that like there were four main things that people wanted to organize under. And that organization was under like police accountability, of course, housing, education, and healing, because there just really isn't enough in our communities around healing. And I was glad that you talked to Bob about that as well, because I think, especially for Black folks and marginalized, and then, you know, being uber marginalized within our communities, we forget that it's not okay to be always the strong person. And it's not okay not to have mechanisms and techniques when we're underneath stress, and to identify what stress is, even in our daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
I have activists all the time say, I had some personal things come up. No shit. We all do. We all, like, seriously, nobody is going through life without personal shit.
Right.
Like, we all have it, but we have to understand how to deal with it if we also know, like, we can see outside the matrix. So we just been organizing within those places. But I think where our organizing is really listening to the people that are within our communities and those that are truly impacted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing I appreciate what Bob talked about. Like that came from a specific incident. Like if people don't know about that incident, they need to know, and then that's where you organize from. You don't just organize because you think it's a great idea or you want to start a nonprofit, because nonprofits are killing us. They're not saving us.
Mm-hmm.
What we're looking at is trying to make sure that our communities can ideate, one, create and manifest in that creation what it is that they need, not like just what they want to talk about. Like this whole time for dialogue has been way past. We're talking about shit for a long time. We are
Right.
now in a place where it's like put all that talking, like you said, and put all that stuff into walking. And I think like where the housing team, which is one of our dopest collective organizing spaces right now, having like all type of community members pitch in their dollars, but also, you know, like community members are giving us their houses and stuff, and being able to look at the work that people are putting in. People are putting in free services to get some of this stuff done. And as soon as like you go to the store, you start talking about it, people are just like, wow, that doesn't make any sense. Had a few realtors that are just like, what, you mean you won't be selling or buying houses? No, because we don't have to do all of that. Like, it's
Right.
not that serious. People need housing, put them in the house. And so we'll probably be finished with this house by the end of January, that we're going to give to one of the mamas. But it's just been like outrageously wonderful just watching like how people have just been coming together around the housing thing, and then like how organically like everything just went viral just a minute ago. But it still cracks me up. Like, it doesn't really crack me up. I'm also a very petty person. So that's where the cracking up comes from. That like some people will not share our work, either because my name is on it or somebody else's name is on it, or that we are actually going to like service people who ask for the service. And so I think like even when they were talking about like how we address like what happens in our community, and knowing
Mhm.
that we have bigger shit to actually talk and be about, we have bigger shit than you worried about if this mama from projects deserves to have a house. That's not up to you to say whether this family deserves to have a house or not. This family exists. They deserve to have a house. In a house more so than rent, because renters economies are drowning our communities. Like,
Mhm.
we are putting so much money into rent that isn't giving us anything back, that we have to put so much money into these companies that do electricity and cable and all these other things. Like, people are literally robbing, Paul pay Pete, or however it goes, and doing a lot of illegal things just to make ends meet. And this is why we justify like some of those things, because that's how they make a living. And this is what our society has set us up for. And we're just like, no, we don't have to do that. If you want people to live by some type of like magical little American code, then we're going to have to give them some basic needs. And housing is a basic need. So is food. Um, the other aspect of Black Lives Matter Louisville, underneath our police account section, that also uses collective fundraising, is the Louisville Community Bail Fund. And there's tons of community bail funds around the nation. And there's even some bailouts that kind of operate this way, like fundraising the money to be able to get these folks out. One, keeps accountability within that organization, but also with that person that they're bailing out. And we know like the money has to be retrieved by somebody, yes, but we're also giving a chance to people to be like, you know what, there's a lot of things in your cases that you're not in control of. Like, I don't think people understand, like, once people are incarcerated in any type of sense of the word, they are not in control of what happens after that. Oh shoot, is it still on?
Yeah, it's still on.
Oh, it said like it was getting ready to go away.
Yeah.
They're not in control of that. And so they have to traverse like the courts, they have to traverse jail, which is so demanding on them. And then they have to traverse the community that's inside, as well as trying to like link up with people outside of jail. And that's hard because a lot of our prisons are private now.
Right.
A lot of our jails are turning private as well. And so we bailed out like at least 10 people. And we also call bailing out like making sure people's fines are paid before they get a warrant, or making sure people have things to eat and stuff like that. Hold on one second, because children are annoying. I should have gave them melatonin.
But yeah, um, those are aspects of our community that, especially the basic needs part, um, and unfortunately, and I hate to say this, and I know I'm on recording, but some of the biggest critics of giving people basic needs, especially people of color, basic needs, sometimes are people of color. And we have to get to the space where we have to invest in each other. And I'm not sure, I think it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on too. I want to pick your brain and other people to hear, like, how do we break down that respectability politics barrier that we have built up? And I know why that has built up. I know why we have this respectability politics bubble around us, because of the systemic and institutionalized oppression that we have been under. And we feel like in order to survive, we have to mirror an oppressive mindset, because we feel that that oppressive mindset also has gotten other people advancement. But how do we get beyond that to say, okay, we have to be collective in our initiatives and our work to benefit society, that basic needs are essential to make sure that our communities are thriving. And that means if we have a bunch of vacant houses where people are making into trap houses, why not purchase them and give people basic needs like you all are doing, or get them donated and have people have basic needs.
And it's exactly what you said. It's a level of complacency, knowing that if you stay within this system that's been built to oppress other people, that as long as now that you don't see that oppression, then you're fine. I think when folks were really rebelling, like in the 50s and in the 60s, I think our history now shows us all the suit and tie people, and that was cute. But they forget, like, you know, we had these real like rebellions even before the larger rebellions. And what happened was a lot of folks, and I don't know what I was reading, and somebody was like, oh, what are you doing? I think it was Ghazi. I like him, so cute. What are you doing with all these white people in your organization, talking about that Uruhu movement or some shit? And he was like, well, when you know Malcolm got set up, that was by a black person. When Martin got set up, that was by a black person. You know, they allow them to set them up in those ways to get assassinated. When a few other people did the setting up, it was black people who set up these martyrs. And so we have to remember that, like, COINTELPRO is real, and that people love this system because it means that they now don't have to rebel to get things done. They fear death, but they also are willing to not see the other folks that are being repressed. And so, like, if you live in the suburbs now, or you live away from Beecher, you know, they make this nice little road in between downtown and the rest of West End called a 9th Street Divide, and it's cute, got trees along it. If you change the siding of these projects, it looks different, so you don't have to actually see that. If the cities want to make sure that they put those people in jail, they do it during times when people are at work. I think, like what we've been doing, we just say, watch Ferguson, you know, like watch Berkeley. These are places that are actually have rebelled and are still working in the revolution. Watch Charlotte. I mean, they are still trying to rebel and still produce this mass revolution for Charlotte, but also South Carolina. Watch North Carolina. They are organizing their asses off, and we're not paying attention to like the hundreds and hundreds of different organizations and almost millions of people in this movement that are actually moving shit. And we don't want to see that. People don't want to see that. I sat with some suits and ties the other day, and they were like, oh, the movement is doing that? Yeah, the movement is doing that. We wouldn't be here saying that we do movement work, and it doesn't move the people. I think that's something else that has systemically been ingrained in us, especially through music, and it's the only time I'll say that because I really don't believe in all that the music got us feeling some type of way. But the way we just like free-flowingly throw out movement, oh, we're going to start a movement. You can't start a movement until the people move. Like, look at, if we're talking about modern rebellion and modern revolution, France is it. Unfortunately, France is it. Like, they may not show up for us at wartime, and they probably got their priorities straight. You know what, player? We got shit at home we need to take care of. Y'all can go handle that shit. Like, we ain't got nothing to do with that. Y'all go do that shit over there. If some real atrocities come out, we'll be there for you. But like right now, this motherfucker got us fucked up. We gonna figure out how we do this. And they put trust in each other. And this is one thing we don't have. We can't just say black people don't have it, because white people don't have it either. We organize with white people, and they are way worse than black people. And I hear black people say it all the time. Oh, we act like crabs in a barrel. Then they act like sharks in a tank, because they make sure they take somebody's head off to get what they want. But France is over there making sure they give it to every person in that government that took a government position and thought it was okay to supersede the people for taxes. That shit just took place this year, and everybody went back to work the next day. And I keep saying that people will keep showing up to work the next day, even though Trump has allowed a police force to take children and put them in a jail, an institution, and chain them up like dogs. That's what that looks like. But before we found out that it was true that they were doing children like that from the border and separate from parents, they do that to children that are already American citizens every day.
Mhm.
Every day. Our children are locked up in detention centers everywhere. And so that's why, like, our Louisville Community Bail Fund makes sure that we get those children out by any means necessary, because once they turn 18, they go to jail without a trial. And that's exactly what this country wants to see. What we don't want to say, lastly, is that genocide is real. It didn't just stop with the American Indians. Black people have been taken out of here by our own internal victimization, but as well as like the police victimization and white folks being able to help hyper incarcerate us, like these whole barbecue Becky's and all that stuff, calling police just trying to check to see if you can get a nigga locked up. That's what that actually is. And I don't even say the N word. That's what they think. That's what that phone call is. Let me see if I can get this motherfucker locked up. That's what that means. So we have way against us than we know we do, and we don't know what to do. And I think we panic. And we just like, well, I'm gonna just go to work and act like everything's fine. Everything's not fine, because now you got to pay a private entity for your gas and light bill, your cable bill, your phone bill, and you're a slave to them, and we don't even know it.
And I think that especially we have, especially Black folks, and people of color, period, we've been taught, and people from lower income backgrounds, we've been taught that education and being well dressed will allow us to transcend racism. That those other people are being victimized because they have not exceeded the expectation of what our respectability politics matrix has to offer. So we, as educated folks, we've made it. And thus, how dare anyone say anything or do anything when it comes to racism to us, because we've already transcended. We're not black. We're not black. We're a different type of black. And that is wrong. And the stats have proved that is wrong, that there are highly educated Black men being wrongfully convicted. There are highly educated Black men and Black women rotten away in prisons for false accusations, and a lot of horrible situations that they shouldn't have been in. And there's a veil of Blackness that permeates through any type of education that we think that may transcend racism. So my goal, and I guess in my work, is trying to tackle the how aspect of trying to intrusively disrupt that system, to make it known that these situations are going on. You'd be so shocked. Even some folks that you would say, oh, they're pretty woke for being this ethnicity or in this group, you'd be so surprised how many people are so oblivious that I get followed at Walmart through aisles. As done up as usually as I am, I still get followed through Walmart or Walgreens in the makeup aisle.
Yeah, your skin color is with you every time you wake up.
Yeah.
That degree is not. Nobody sees that degree.
Correct.
Nobody sees your bank account until you get to the cash register. They don't care. They're just doing whatever the CEO says. That's all they're doing. We forget that anti-Blackness is rooted in capitalism. That's where it comes from. And so, like, we keep trying to let people know, because there's, I've had so many run-ins with a lot of anarchist folks that are oblivious to, like, who leads what type of work and where that work should come from. Just because you believe that the government shouldn't exist, or you believe that, we should have a certain type of equity amongst Black, brown, and other marginalized folks, that a lot of that shit is rooted in anti-Blackness. And they just do not see it. they forget that the biggest tactic of white supremacy is racism, and then remembering what racism is and the different factions of racism, fascism, capitalism, this whole faux democracy that we have keep going on around republics and stuff. A lot of that shit just, it ain't work nowhere.
All right. So I always like I mentioned to the BOP crew, I always like to end with a call to action. And so what can we do to better serve our communities? And what can we do to assist you in Black Lives Matter Louisville in serving the community?
I'm going to challenge folks to actually manifest Blackness in their communities. Like for you to definitely get Richmond to understand that Black people live there, and they do. It's a whole bunch of y'all. And guess what, motherfuckers? We getting ready to celebrate Kwanzaa. And then that's going to come in so many different types of ways. There's just like not one calling out, but to revere Black dignity for like anybody. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to like be a bystander, but we've got to have some intervention tactics when we see things aren't right. And then for Black Lives Matter Louisville, if you can't come to Louisville and help us with these houses or to go meet with these babies and get them out of jail, do that in the area where you're at. There's going to be some large bailouts that are going to happen the first of the year. If you look that up through the people, a lot of the community bail funds were all on a list. We're raising money to match a lot of our other bail funds. And we have a personal bail fund to bring them home for the holidays. We also have the housing team fundraiser and links. But you know what? Find folks in your area who are doing that work and support them. Even if it means going to their ill-timed meetings, even if it means that you're tired one day, show up for an hour. I look at it like a HR liaison. If I have 4 people who come by for an hour, we have moved at least 4 hours of work out of the way. Like not showing up is not helping us. We cannot continue to keep exhausting our bodies for this type of liberation work or our minds. And it's going to take us to get it done. Just put it like that. We can be mad at white people all day. White people, there's too many of them for them to be sitting their asses at home decorating Christmas trees and shit and trying to figure out cheese balls for the New Year's party or whatever. I need to get the fuck out here, get this fucking president out of office, stop the border control, stop these little police officers, what is that, SWAT and all of them. That's what y'all can do. Put your bodies online. I hope they watch. I hope they say like come on,
Oh gosh, I love you, Chanelle. You say everything that's in my mind.
Finish.
So, but I want to thank you and everyone that's gonna view this. Thank you for viewing the third day of Kwanzaa celebration, where we talked about collective work and responsibility. Some really great nuggets and really great talks within this conversation. More importantly, being able to know how we can invest in our communities, even from the little to the big. That the important, really, the whole sum up of this whole talk is don't talk about it, be about it. We do a lot of complaining about things that are going on in our community, but until we actually step in or actually do the work, then it's still going to remain stagnant. We can't just sit there and wait for people anymore. We have to be the change, and it's so cliche to say that, but we really have to be the change. We can't sit back and wait for people. So yeah, thank you so much, Chanelle. Thank you for Bop, and stay tuned for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. This is so cute. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Bye.